let's get into the top story, which is, well, the most corrupt government in Europe. I'm just going to throw this out there. The most corrupt government in Europe is a country by the name of Ukraine. Now, you may have heard of this country, Ukraine. It is the most corrupt government in Europe. The Guardian did a deep dive on Ukraine's corruption. In fact, right now, you can go to the U.S. State Department's website and you can see how they document Ukraine's corruption as late as the year 2021. In fact, the United States State Department discourages and even warns U.S. businesses from doing business in Ukraine due to widespread corruption and a government that is anti-democratic. You know, lock up opposition, lock up journalists, make them disappear. This is on the State Department's website. It has been for years, actually. The U.S. State Department in 2021 detailed how the Ukrainian government has a history of making people disappear at the hand of their secret police. So we were shocked. We were shocked to learn overnight that there was gambling going on inside this establishment, that the corruption in Ukraine is even worse than ever. The Ukrainian government confirmed the resignation of multiple high-ranking Ukrainian officials caught in a massive corruption scheme. This is being called the largest mass resignation and corruption scandal since the Russian invasion began. So far, over a dozen high-ranking Ukrainian officials have quit their posts after it was revealed that they were stealing U.S. aid money. So your tax dollars, and not just U.S. money, European money, money from the EU, money from all over the world, is being stolen to enrich themselves, buying expensive cars, embezzling money, bribery, buying houses. The list of offenses is quite long, actually, when you go through it. All of this is happening, of course, while common people suffering under wartime conditions who are paying exorbitant energy costs. Indicators today that gas prices are going to be surging again in the next coming weeks. There are a couple of big indicators on that. Diesel prices, etc. Natural gas, of course, is up. Electricity costs are through the roof. Food shortages. So you're suffering, but they're lining their pockets off of your money. Here's just a small sample of the people that were caught stealing. I'm not going to really attempt to speak all of their names, but here's just a laundry list. Deputy prosecutor. Here's the deputy prosecutor. The deputy minister for development of communities and territories. The deputy minister for development of communities and territories, another one. Nagoda. They were all in this. Deputy minister of social policy. The regional governors of multiple regions, Zaporizhia, Kiev, Sumy, Kherson, Dnipropetrovsk. Am I saying that right? I don't know. And then, of course, last week we saw the Ukrainian air defenses blew up the helicopter that was carrying the interior minister alongside his deputy minister and their state secretary. Here was this incident, of course. Here's what's left of that helicopter. So corruption, major members of the government stealing, caught up in this corruption scandal, and then shot out of the sky.
I mean, this is not new. Yanukovych had a palace before he fled the country, the former president, outside of Kiev. It's like it still stands as sort of a lavish shrine to excess. They don't make very much, but it's called Mezzoria. It has a cocktail bar, a 3-lane bowling alley, a gym, a boxing ring, indoor tennis courts, a swimming pool with an artificial waterfall, a basement rifle range, a conservatory containing palms and a stuffed lion, a relaxation room with stalactites made of salt crystal, a Neogothic cinema. I can go on. Like 5 pianos. This is common. This is known.
So, yeah, for years. And of course, we covered all of those guys leaving, right? All of those guys from the government, a lot of the people from the high up leaving and going to Monaco and setting up base there.
But we should not fool ourselves that this kind of government corruption is over now in less than a decade. It's just not there any longer.
And again, to my point, if you went on the U.S. State Department's website in 2021, it had a laundry list of egregious offenses and why United States, if you're in business, you should avoid doing business in Ukraine because of all of these levels of corruption. So this is not new, but I guess suddenly when February of 2022 rolls around, then suddenly we forget that stuff, right? We just ignore the corruption. This guy was in charge of the Army's logistical support, this guy. Getting food and supplies to the guys that need it most. Instead of that, though, he was lining his pockets by charging the United States inflated prices for food rations and then pocketing the rest, the difference. So, this MRE, this meal ready to eat, actually cost $2, but he's charging $6 and then pocketing the difference. All of this reminds me of how Democrats refused to appoint a Ukrainian auditor when Senator Rand Paul withheld his vote on the spending in Ukraine. And he was saying, look, we need to have an auditor. He wanted to make sure that billions being sent to Ukraine wasn't being stolen or mishandled like it was in Afghanistan. Of course, he withheld his vote. Democrats voted against the auditor. Watch.
If this gift to Ukraine passes, our total aid to Ukraine will almost equal the entire military budget of Russia. And it's not as if we have that money lying around. We will have to borrow that money from China to send it to Ukraine. The cost of this package we are voting on today is more than the U.S. spent during the first year of the U.S. conflict in Afghanistan. Congress authorized force, and the president sent troops into the conflict. The same cannot be said of Ukraine. This proposal towers over domestic priorities as well.
Yeah, it does. So instead of infrastructure in the United States or schools, roads, bridges, rail system, where's the Build Back Better plan? It's in Ukraine. So can you imagine voting against an audit so that this doesn't happen? That was exactly what Rand Paul was warning us about, right? We would know, hey, okay, wait a minute, you're overcharging us for meals ready to eat and food rations?
Right. 3 times the price,
right.
Then maybe, just maybe, we don't need to send 3 times as much.
Right. So
we
these
can
guys
reduce
are corrupt.
our budget.
We would have been able to figure this out. Hey, these guys are corrupt. So we'd figure this out. So this list includes the most powerful people in the government. This would be like if every member of President Biden's cabinet just resigned amid corruption charges. Think about this for a second. Wrap your heads around this. Transportation Secretary Buttigieg, gone because of corruption, right? Energy Secretary Granholm, gone because of corruption. Top prosecutor Merrick Garland at the Department of Justice, gone. It's the same damn thing. So it begs the question then, how high does this corruption go?
And how much will it touch Zelensky?
Right.
I mean, the global press has done a really good job pretending that it doesn't touch him at all. And just like he was surrounded by these people, that's a shame.
They ignore all of the houses that he owns.
Yes.
When it was seen that his wife was spending $40,000 in Paris, right after asking the West for more money, that was swept under the table, right? You're not supposed to know about that. All of these people quit surrounding Zelensky. How high does this go? These are his people. So the walls are closing in on him. Now, as you know, Colonel Douglas Macgregor on our show a number of months ago said the real question is, when does this get to Zelensky, right? When does it get to a point where it closes in around him? And are we seeing that right now? It appears so. These things don't just happen, right? A helicopter shot down. All of these members of your inner circle are now resigning over corruption. How does this happen? Who's putting the screws to him? Meanwhile, American businesses are forbidden from doing business in Russia because of sanctions. They're being encouraged to do business in Ukraine, though. What the hell? Really? Didn't you hear my State Department example just a minute ago? Like, the State Department's telling American businesses you probably should avoid Ukraine because it's full of corruption, so probably not a great place to do business. But now we're actively encouraging business in Ukraine and telling you not to do business in Russia. See the hypocrisy and double standards here. The most corrupt government in Europe you're being encouraged to do business with. Because this is all theater, of course, right? Yesterday, during a business breakfast that was organized by the U.S. government and Ukrainian leaders and American businesses, you had the CEOs of BlackRock, Goldman Sachs, Westinghouse, all announcing major plans to partner with Ukraine and reconstruct Ukraine. Perfect opportunity, right? Again, the U.S. State Department was up until last year warning Americans and American businesses to avoid doing business with the corrupt Ukraine. So what changed? Well, so yesterday we got some major announcements. BlackRock plans to turn Ukraine into, quote, a beacon of capitalism, they say. Well, maybe you could start with the government itself, which is actively which is actively dictatorial at this point, going after and closing down churches, going after and disappearing opposition leaders and journalists. Capitalistic? You're going to make this a beacon of capitalism? And Goldman Sachs says that Ukraine's reconstruction will offer, quote, good economic incentives for real return and investment. Here's how the Washington Post framed it this morning. At the same breakfast session, Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, spoke of his plans to help coordinate billions of dollars worth of reconstruction financing for Ukraine, saying he hoped the initiative would also turn the country into a beacon of capitalism. David Solomon, CEO of Goldman Sachs, spoke cheerily of Ukraine's post-war future. There's no question that as you rebuild, there will be good economic incentives for real return and real investment, he said. And not to be outdone, of course, Volodymyr Zelensky, with the coordination of the U.S. government, joined the meeting to thank these businesses for their money. And he explained how all of these weapons contractors, this is an unbelievable piece of video. Wake up, grandma, get your kids, watch this piece of video. They have to pinch yourself to see what he says. He explained how all of these weapons contractors are able to use Ukraine to make massive profits. Come to Ukraine, you will benefit, weapons contractors, everything. Ukraine will be your breadbasket. Watch.
It is obvious that American business can become the locomotive that will once again push forward global economic growth. We have already managed to attract attention and have cooperation with such giants of the international financial and investment world as BlackRock, JP Morgan, and Goldman Sachs. Such American brands as Starlink or Westinghouse have already become part of our Ukrainian way. Your brilliant defense systems, such as HIMARS or Bradleys, are already uniting our history of freedom with your enterprises. We are waiting for Patriots. We are looking closely at Abrams. Thousands of such examples are possible, and everyone can become a big business by working with Ukraine in all sectors, from weapons and defense to construction, from communication to agriculture, from transport to IT, from banks to medicine. And I believe that freedom must always win.
It's like a creepier version of like an Epcot ride. Like,
yeah,
the future of tomorrow. Here in Ukraine, you come and you get to see the future. It's
great
like
American way.
Yeah, right.
We have capitalism and we want consumerism. As long as we
maybe I don't
do the death first.
Okay. So when you come to do business there, what we're doing is basically laundering money. That's basically what we're doing. So if you come and do business here, you're getting laundered money. That's how this works. I like your American weapons.
Which will then line the pockets of the worst people imaginable.
Yeah.
Are we to believe that he is then going to replace these with adults, upstanding adults in the room who are actually going to manage any aid that comes in? No, it's what actually a YouTube commenter on one of our videos recently said. It's a kakistocracy. Have you heard this? Kakistocracy is a government run by the worst people. Like kakistocracy.
Kakistocracy.
And yeah, that's what we're supporting at this point.
Your American weapons, and I enjoy your American M&Ms. We have bowls of American M&Ms all around office here in Kyiv. So bring your candies. I love your American M&Ms. Kit Kat, bring those as well. So we are a breadbasket for capitalism. Now, according to the AP, so this is amazing because, yesterday we saw the United States has announced that it's going to send 31 Abrams tanks to Ukraine. And of course, these will be destroyed very quickly. And of course, just a short time ago, we did get confirmation of about 100 different Leopard tanks coming from Poland through Poland. Now, these are older Leopard tanks. These aren't the new ones that Germany's about to send, which we'll get to in the next segment. So we learned yesterday that the war in Ukraine is finally starting to pay off big time for some of these American weapons companies like Raytheon and Lockheed Martin. they posted stunning quarterly earnings yesterday. So here's how the Daily Caller puts it. The war in Ukraine is finally starting to pay off for big defense contractors.
Oh, good. I mean, fortune favors the bold, you know.
We were worried about these guys, right? Lockheed reported quarterly sales of $19 billion. 3% above internal forecasts, netting 1.9 million in profit compared to, billion in profit compared to 2.05 billion the prior year. Raytheon earned 1.4 billion in the fourth quarter of 2022 compared to 685 million in the same period in 2021. With sales skyrocketing nearly 6% to 18 billion, results that beat Wall Street expectations. By the way, who's the Wall Street analyst that got that wrong? We're like in multiple wars around the world. We're in Yemen. We're in Somalia. We're in Syria. We're leveling Ukraine, destroying Ukraine, sending weapon after weapon after weapon. How does a Wall Street analyst get that wrong?
I think they're doing that on purpose.
Downplaying it?
Yeah, to make it not seem like it's profitable.
Now, Lockheed and Raytheon make up the lion's share of contracts associated with the $27 billion in U.S. security assistance that's been committed there. Starting 11 months ago. So the remaining, we just got Boeing earnings today, which actually were not that good, but unrelated really to Ukraine. General Dynamics, Northrop Grumman, we'll see that on tomorrow's results tomorrow from Northrop Grumman. So I'm sure these weapons contractors, anything that they're able to funnel into Ukraine. And we also heard on the earnings call from Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, they're like, we're doing great. Like we're really amping things up. So
we're having a fun time.
Yeah, everything's great. We're doing really, really great in Ukraine.
This is how it is reported in the Japanese media. Are those who praise the Ukrainian government turning a blind eye?